For the biggest part of my life, I would look at my childhood and the issues I faced and the trauma and the subsequent mental issues that arose as an excuse. And not to get external help or gratification or sympathy, but as an excuse for me not trying. You know, it's easy to victimize yourself and go, well, I suffered this, or I'm this sort of person, or I've got this issue, and therefore it makes sense why I'm not successful, or makes sense why I'm not at a place that I want to be, or that I think I could be, because, well, look at the stuff that I've faced. So, you know, yeah, give yourself some slack if you're struggling, but realize that regardless of what you've gone through, you have to push because no one else will. And if you label yourself as a victim, you'll probably stay in that mindset for the rest of your life, and only you can push through that. My father was an addict and a drug dealer, and it wasn't that behavior that was the most concerning or the biggest issue. It really was the neglect. And, you know, his mindset basically put him in a state where he wasn't there for me. You know, he'd be physically there, but mentally he just wasn't. You couldn't really talk to him or engage him or that sort of stuff for a prolonged period of time at all. He was more preoccupied mentally. And, you know, it's not that he personally did anything directly physical or sexually assaulting to me, but there were times where the clientele that came into his house did. And, you know, I don't know the full details because it's still locked up in my mind, but the memories are coming back. And the more that comes back to me, the more traumatized I feel by it. And the more that I sort of not feel sorry for myself, but start making excuses as to why I haven't done more with my life, or haven't pushed, or haven't, you know, I've let opportunities past, because, you know, really, it makes sense. I was a victim. Bad things happened to me. So, of course I'm going to struggle with life. But the older I get, the more I realize that whilst that might be true, and whilst I've learnt that I have to really look after my mental state, self-assigning myself a victim status and staying in that mindset doesn't help me. Although it's true and I have to make allowances for my mental state when I go up and down, if I don't take the effort to push beyond it and overcome it, and that could be through seeing a psychologist or meditation or exercise or writing a book, or, you know, all of the things that I do to help me. If I don't take those steps, I'm just going to be stuck in the same mindset anyway. And therefore, I'm sort of giving in to what happened to me in my past. By not taking action and not fighting against it, not pushing through it and just accepting it. Well, that's just it. I'm just accepting what happened to me. And it's like I'm giving it power over me. And I refuse. You know, it's a tough battle and I go up and down, but if I don't fight for myself, no one will. And yeah, people will care, and people always care about you. But ultimately, you have to fight for yourself, because, you know, you've got your own vested interests, you know yourself, and who else is there? That's not to say that people won't care. You know, I've got a bunch of friends and family, a lovely wife, and a young son that love me and care for me and will help me. But I have to push through myself, because whilst they can offer support and love and guidance and assistance, if I'm not willing to have that internal strength and desire to heal, nothing that they say or do for me will ultimately help. It might keep me alive for longer, or, you know, reduce the suffering, and it might give me, you know, ideas or a method to improve. But if I don't, you know, it's like getting medicine. If someone gives you medicine, you have to take it. You have to actually consume the medicine and get better by that. You know, if you don't, the medicine just sits on the shelf and you stay sick. So ultimately, I've learnt that healing has to come from you, because there's no one else that it can. So if you're suffering, please take steps to get better. If something's happened to you in your past, you need to accept that that's happened. You need to accept the impact it's had on your life, and you need to take steps to move on. And there's a bunch of things that you can do for yourself. But the first in my book is accepting what's happened, because unless you do that, there's nothing else that can happen. You have to first acknowledge what's happened, take a step to move on, and then push. If you like this video, I really encourage you to head over to my website at zachary-phillips.com, and from there you'll be able to see a link to my book, blog, and podcast. And in my book I talk about my past and my history with my father and some of the significant events that have happened in my life. It's a bit of an intense read, but the writing of it was one of the most helpful things that I've done for my own mental health, and people that have gone through a similar circumstance, they're really getting some benefit from it. And if you can relate to my story, and if you like what I'm saying here, head over and take a look, because I really think it'll help you.